Okay, here we go again, Brian. It finally started, man. The long wait is over.
A long wait. What long wait are you talking about?
I've been waiting for duck season since last duck season, man.
Yeah, no doubt. But it's the sad part is we haven't been able to do any duck hunting during duck season yet.
You know what? Sometimes life comes at you hard and you just can't get away from it. I mean, we got a lot of good invites to go out there. We had a lot of good plans. We were rip-roaring ready to go. And then, I mean, my kid got sick. You had stuff and we just couldn't get out there. Fortunately for us, we have Mr. Ruben in the studio, and he did get out there.
I did.
He did smash some ducks, and so if we can't do it, at least our kind of one of our hunting mentors, Ruben, really got after it, man.
Man, it's really good to have Ruben back in the studio again. And the last time we was in here, man, it was a great conversation. This time, I think we're going to have a little bit even more informative of a conversation. We're going to have. We're all going to talk about kind of the way we do things and some of the equipment we use. And, the three of us between Ron, Ruben, and I think we shoot just about everything there is. And then I think we were just about every different brand we can to just have differences. So we'll talk a little bit about what works, what doesn't work, some of the things that Ruben does and has. And, I think it'll be a really good episode. So
I want to, do you want to give us a little insight on how your opener went?
Just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to drop us pins, but
sure.
Pull that mic a little bit closer to you if you would. Just
you the left one or the right one, either one.
Yeah, well,
either one will work.
Maybe both.
So, there you go.
So because I tend to move around when I'm talking.
That's perfect, man. Okay,
Ruben in stereo.
So in stereo, the opener. So as probably many of you know, and maybe a lot of folks don't know that. We have one of the earliest big duck seasons that comes around out here out west and in Nevada, and so the northeast part of Nevada and the northwest part of Nevada, and I'm talking about specifically the northeast and the Ely area, 111 for all you guys out there. So there's Steptoe Wildlife Management Area, as well as there's a lot of private land there. There's water there. And so I've made that trek for the last several years. And so I'll start off by saying this. I completely went off my comfort zone. I purposely chase ducks. I don't chase geese, right? Anytime I kill a goose or one ends up in my bag, it was by total accident or by a stroke of good luck.
Hashtag Team Duck, huh?
Right, all the way. I'll chase ducks.
Are you a mallard purist?
Snob is a better word for it. So a good friend of mine, Mike Cowell, and his dad live up there. And so Mike, a shout out to Mike. He's the manager, the store manager for Cal Ranch, right? So he moved up there 2-3 years ago. And so
now, if we're talking about this, a side note on Mike, he has done a heck of a job at that store. You go in there and there's duck stuff, there's hunting stuff, there are good guns. You can tell that there's a guy that knows hunting running that store.
2 places we go in Ely every single time: Cal Ranch and Rax.
Right, food and guns.
Exactly. That's what else you need.
Right? And so, I agree. Mike has done a great job. He was an Overton boy. And he could say that proudly. I first met him and his father over 20 years ago, and I think Mike Jr. was 10 years old. He wasn't shooting ducks yet when I first met him, and great kid. He's grown up to be a excellent waterfowler, and now he's a great business person, very, very professional, and he takes care of those people up in Ely. They should be lucky to have him, right? And especially the hunters that travel up there as well.
Yeah.
Tries to stock that place with things that we're looking for, or what he knows what we're looking for, even when we don't know. So had an opportunity to reunite with him. He invited me out. He said, "Hey, come on, why don't you come goose hunting with us? Just kind of forego that duck hunt, for the next couple of days." And I really, guys, I'll admit to you, I had a heck of a time saying yes. Who says no to a goose hunt, right?
There's two things you don't do.
Right.
You never, ever, if there's an expert in their field that they go, "Hey, let's go do this," you never say no. You go, yeah, I'm going to go do that.
Yeah. So I finally said, yes, I'll hunt with you. Who's who's hunting with us, and so it ended up being there was 5 of us on the first day and 3 of us on the second day. So he took us to one of the fields that they hunt, and so I got what I wanted out of it as well. I'll be honest with you. On that day, we actually killed, I believe it was eight Canadians, and lo and behold, there was some ducks in that field somewhere, and they decided to fly by us. So we ended up knocking down seven ducks that day as well. So it was something like 5 mallards, a pintail, and one other duck. I can't remember what it was, but it was an excellent shoot for an opening day. Knocked down some geese and knocked down some ducks up in Ely. And the only complaint I have was the weather. It's been warm, but the ducks were flying. And going back to what you said about when an expert or somebody that's a professional that invites you out, absolutely, because it was a great learning for me, completely out of my comfort zone, and I have to respect these goose hunters. I tell you what, they talk about gear intensive. I thought duck hunting was gear intensive, but I tell you, we were dragging dozens upon dozens of decoys, and everything is just bigger. Your duck cart is not your small duck cart. I mean, this thing was like a freight truck to get this equipment out there, but. We got our dogs to work. It was a great opener, a great primer for a great upcoming season, and so I call those hunts smash and grabs, where you're up at 4 o'clock and you're just getting your spot and you're putting out all these decoys, and then we hunted all day, and then we turned around next morning, go back, and there was 3 of us that hunted in the Lund area. We ended up killing 8 birds there. So. But what was amazing is just watching Mike and his dad. They're really know their field craft as far as calling in geese, right? I mean, it was just 20 yards or less in your face.
That's awesome. That's the first time we met you. In fact, that was we were up at Key Pittman, and everybody kind of getting ready, and we're first thing in the morning trying to figure out where everybody's going to go, and Ruben pulls up next to us, and I'm like, here's a guy in Sitka. Here we go. Well, Sitka boys, right? And so we got talking a little bit, and Ruben's like, hey, where you guys going to go? And we're like, well, we're going to go in the field because we're trying to get some geese today. And Ruben's like, oh, you guys are nuts. And and Ruben went off and hunted his, but I mean, and that was our first, kind of our first introduction to Ruben. And then, Ruben had heard the podcast and had talked to us and was really complimentary of our podcast. And so then, we brought Ruben in the first time, and it's just been.
We always like people that are nice to us.
Yeah, dude. And Ruben's just, you're such a good guy. You're such a nice guy that really takes guys under your wings and willing to help them. And we just had Scott Fowler in here before the podcast, right. And Scott was asking some questions, and Ruben's like, well, hey, you want to learn to call? Yeah, I'll come help you learn to call. And so it's those things that, that's what makes this podcast such a great thing for us, is because everybody's willing to kind of help everybody else out. There's nobody that's like, nope, I'm keeping it all for myself and nobody else can have it.
These are all my sakes. I met old Mike up at Cal Ranch one day, and I'm not that great of a goose caller. I'm not that great of a duck caller. Anyways, I met old Mike up there, and he was like, yeah, this is what you do, and this is how you do it. And he was teaching me right in the store. We probably looked like complete weirdos, but yeah, he's the same way. He's always willing to help. He's not going to give you a spot. And those old timers won't give you their spots no matter what. And that is their prerogative, and they have earned that. And so you can't get mad if someone doesn't tell you where to go. You have no right to be mad. Right. But if you pose the questions to them correctly and ask for help, even the guy that won't give you the spot will still tell you how to do stuff.
Well, that's the thing, is this group that we've kind of put together with some guys that are new this last year just from doing the podcasts. And we were going to go up to Ely for opener, and Ron actually had a spike tag, and we were going to go up there and do the spike tag, and we're going to get him a spike and do ducks. And, Ron's kid he got sick, and so we couldn't do that. And everybody's like, dude, Ron, we already found the spike for you. Just come up here. It'll be a quick hunt. We'll get on some ducks. And we'll go back home. So it's great to have.
That's the whole reason is because I always tell Scott, I was like, dude, I'm just going to turn it in. I want to shoot ducks. I was going to turn it in. Scott's like, listen, you dummy. Like, don't turn that in.
Yeah. And so, when you have groups of guys that are willing to go out and, it's about a group being successful and about people around you being successful. And I think when people around you are successful, in turn, you end up being successful, right? I believe I'm a wholehearted believer in karma, right? So if I'm good to people, good things are going to happen to me. If I'm a jerk to people, bad things are going to happen. So we have a group of hunters in Southern Nevada, especially that are really good to each other. If people need something or they have a question about something, none of us are going to give you our spots, right? We're not going to say,
right,
here's where the X is. This is exactly where I'd go hunt.
Unless you've earned it.
If you've earned it. But we will say, hey, yeah, maybe I'd set the decoys up like this, or, hey, this is what I've had success with, lately. And so it helps us all be more successful hunters. And we talked about the last time we talked about, you and your Monster Mojo setup, the one day. And so, you learn different things from everybody, and we have to be humble enough to look at somebody else's and say, hey, maybe he's getting ducks, man. Why is he getting ducks and I'm not? And then we can make adjustments. And so just having that will make it better for everybody to hunt. And so it makes it more enjoyable. I would much rather go out and have a talk with a guy in the morning and say, hey, I'm going to go over there, and we're going to, okay, if I go over there, he's going to push ducks to me and I can push ducks to him,
right,
and have everybody work together. Then, hey, where are you going to go? Well, it's none of your business. I'm going to tell you where I'm going.
There's no secrets in Southern Nevada. Anyways, so it's one of my favorite sayings. Ruben, what do you got there on the table, man?
Well, I got a shotgun that we're going to turn into, basically, you can turn your shotgun into a conservation snow goose killer, is what I call it, for $110. So I get a lot of questions from folks in regard to snow goose hunts, the conservation hunts that occur after the season. Typically, they start in February. You have them going through March, April, May, just depending on the states. And so those states are, Arkansas, Missouri, you have North Dakota, South Dakota. So a lot of guys are starting to extend their season by hunting the conservation hunts and for snow geese. And one of the great things about the snow goose hunts is the fact that in some states, you don't have to buy a license. The guns are unplugged, and so that's what we're going to talk about today, how to get set up for a snow goose hunt that you're planning maybe this coming spring or sometime in the future.
What about Nevada? Are Nevada guns unplugged?
Nevada guns unplugged?
Yeah.
Oh boy, don't tell the Warrens that, but no, they should be plugged.
Yeah, so what we're showing you today, do not do in Nevada, but
if you do, you get to donate to conservation in schools.
It goes to schools, yeah. But go ahead, yeah.
So, yes, I appreciate you bringing that up. This is for, there's certain purposes for having a high-capacity shotgun. One, obviously, we just talked about in regard to snow goose conservation hunts, where they allow unplugged guns, right? And in certain countries like Buenos Aires, where you can shoot doves and ducks there with unplugged guns as well. Limits are very liberal, and in some cases, shoot all the snow geese you want to shoot, that sort of thing, with electronic calls. And I know that guys are starting to wander off and do that, and I've done it for several years now. And so one of the things, I remember my first snow goose hunt, and that was in Arkansas. And so, it's a group effort, right? Because you need that many people to put all of those silo socks, these white things out there, by the thousands, right? So you get to hunt with a group of guys, and for the most part, some of them are groups that came together. And in my case, I travel. I like to travel, and I just like to meet new hunters and see what they're doing and how they're doing it. And so I remember my first goose hunt, where why has everybody got extended magazines on their gun, and I got this? So here I am unplugging my gun just to get that one extra round in there. Because there was a great disadvantage just having a plug gun, being able to shoot 3 rounds or in some cases 4 rounds, and they were dumping 10 rounds. And so needless to say, I did contribute to 100 goose day, but I was limited in my capabilities loading my gun up to 10 rounds or somewhere in that neighborhood. So what I thought I'd share with your listeners is how easy this is. If they're thinking about a conservation hunt, there was 2 other things that people may want to have high capacity guns. there's probably some three gunners out there that shoot the USPSA 3 guns, and I know that a lot of those guns have extended magazines, and that's what for a long time that was the purpose of these companies such as SureCycle. We'll talk about that a little bit, and Nordic Components. There's some of the premier guys that are putting out these extended tubes for these guns, and then some guys are just extending their shotguns, their semi-auto shotguns, for defense purposes as their home defense gun. So, but today we're going to talk about turning your duck gun into a goose gun. And so we'll just start off. And I mentioned SureCycle. They have the best selection out there, because their SureCycle extended mag kit, for the most part, is $108.95. So what that includes is your mag tube, right? The extended spring that's going to be required to make sure it operates properly, and it comes with a barrel clamp, and then what they call an end cap. Okay, so those are all the components that you need to turn this gun. So right now on their website, it'll say 2 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6. So those are in addition to what your gun can carry. Okay, so what we're doing for our example tonight is this. Obviously, this is one of my Benellis that I can convert over, and this is what I use for snow goose hunting. And so it's a very simple process, and that's what I wanted the listeners to learn, and possibly they're thinking about a snow goose hunt, like I said, this coming spring or possibly in the future. So we're gonna just
just for home defense. I mean, if 4 is good, 10 is better.
And it really has the.
I'm gonna use for teal hunting.
Yeah, and it really has the.
Sometimes they're fast and they're on the run, and you just gotta follow them.
Right. So.
Ducks, not people.
They're cool looking. It has the chicks dig it factor when you have an extended tube on your 26 or 28 inch shotgun, right? So this is a Benelli. This is an M1 Super 90, and it has a 26 inch barrel. And so before we get started, I just want to make sure that chamber's
gun
empty.
Is empty, right? Chamber's open.
Empty chamber, right? So I just wanted to make sure that we're practicing safe gun handling on the show here. So the first thing you need to do is just obviously remove the end cap of your current setup, because you're going to replace it with an end cap that's attached to the extended tube. Okay. So, oops, I knew that what I was going to do.
Yeah, he had his plug in. Yep. Game warden, he had his plug in.
Well, one of my first times out hunting, my gun was broke, and I wanted to go take it apart. And this kid I was sitting next to, Gannon, I was like, "Don't take your gun apart in the field, man. You break it. That's bad luck." But that same thing happened. There's shot everywhere. We found it, though.
So what you just uninstalled is your spring and your plug or your limiter. And for a lot of shotguns, the semi-automatic shotguns, there's also, just warning you, that there's a cap that's inside here. It's a pressure fit cap that you may have to remove, so that way you can take the spring out. So it's a capture. It captures the spring inside the actual magazine tube. So I've taken that out, obviously. So
do you leave that out, Ruben?
What's that?
Do you leave that pressure cap out? You don't leave it in there then, huh?
It's not necessary.
It's not functional.
But it comes from the factory that way. So it does, to me. I think the only function that it may have is that it makes sure that things don't get down in your magazine to where it gets dirty.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's totally not necessary. The gun actually functions 100%. So this components that I'm putting in is Nordic Components, but I think on your screen there we put up SureCycle, and SureCycle has been in the waterfowl business for quite some time. But they started manufacturing these kits for these guys that are participating and wanting to hunt in conservation hunts. Okay, so here's what I got. So I'm gonna remove. Actually, I don't have to remove this. What all you need to do is you take the spring, the long spring that comes with the kit. And I'm gonna stand up to do this. So it's kind of tricky. You gotta make sure that you hold the spring or it's gonna obviously pop out. So I'm gonna go like this. I'm not a gunsmith by any means.
Probably best to do this before you get in the field.
Yeah, before you get in the field.
And
So I'm not a certified gunsmith, but if I can do this, you can do this at home as well.
Cody love it because it's got barrel stickers on it.
I know.
Something I have gotten away from is putting stickers on things, and I just, just to promote the companies and stuff like that. All right, hold on a second. So takes a minute or two to manipulate this,
Well, to feed it in, that's a pain in the butt.
right, to feed it in. So the end cap that it comes with is actually it's threaded, so you can try to never do this on camera before. So
Hey, you do a better job than me, man.
once you have it, started to thread, I wonder if your listeners can see this.
Tilt the gun down a little bit.
Just a tiny bit.
Okay.
There you go.
So
That'll
you're
work.
just screwing it just like the end cap itself, right? And so there you go. So it's tightened down, right? And so again, the kit comes with your magazine tube. So it comes with either a stainless steel tube, or for a little bit more money, you can actually get the carbon look. So it's a lighter gun, or it becomes lighter. And so that's that. And so also what it comes with is a barrel clamp. So you're clamping the magazine to the barrel.
Just some extra stability there, huh?
Yeah, just to finish it off, and I'll screw this on really quick. And all you really need is to do this. The only tool that you need is an Allen wrench.
Now, how many that will hold up to 10 now, correct?
Right. So this becomes a 10 shooter.
That means you get one duck out of there, Ron.
Well, yeah, at least that, man. By the time I get it, they'll only be in half.
Let me flip this around.
Now, how effective are these in the field, do you think?
As far
As like just keeping up with everybody else out there shooting?
well, in the goose blind,
Yeah.
yeah, it's fun not having to reload and trying to catch.
Is it?
Yeah, and so it's legal to do during conservation hunts, and so it gives you a different experience because you're sitting there, you're just shooting away, right?
What's the purpose of a conservation hunt? I mean, explain it. Why they do it down in that part of the country?
So, and really, it started as obviously a conservation program that became very, very successful as far as with the snow geese. And so they became so prolific that they were eating themselves out of house and home up north, right? And so they had to somehow reduce their number because of the fact that when they come down south, they were tearing up the crops. And so it's a conservation hunt, almost like a depredation hunt.
Yeah, I was going to say it's the same thing as a depredation hunt, pretty much. How does that affect the swing of your shotgun?
So I recommend to people, and that's an excellent question. The swing of the gun is a lot slower, so you got to get up on the gun a little bit faster, and especially shooting from a coffin blind, right? So or a layout blind. So it gives you a little bit of a workout. You got to bring that gun up. First the weight of coming up on your target, and then possibly swinging the target. So this particular gun takes 2 screws, and so I'm not going to do that.
Do you care if I want to try swinging if you're okay with that?
Yeah. So this is the gun complete. That's all I had to do was just change the parts out. So a couple of things on here that you guys probably noticed, and we'll talk about those, but I'll let you swing this. This particular gun on these Benellis and a lot of the inertia guns too, and gas guns, you can take the bolt out. And my preference is I always put big bolts on my guns because
Where'd you get that piece from?
this one is Nordic Arms.
Nordic Arms also.
Yeah. Yeah. So Nordic Arms, so it just clicks in there. And
You're
so,
an expensive guest, man. Now I'm going to have to go get one of those tonight.
so the purpose of this knurled knob, obviously, is because we wear gloves. We shoot in cold weather. And so instead of trying to possibly get the gun loaded, if it didn't go slide lock, or if you're trying to eject around or trying to load your gun, this is a really big knob, right? Big knob.
Do they sell it in a less red color?
Yes, I actually had this these pieces Cerakoted. It's just something I do.
Black.
It comes
right
in black, right?
Yeah.
It comes in black right there
Oh,
from.
nice.
So
It's $30. That's not bad.
yeah, so for a $30 piece, it helps with the gloves, right? The other thing that I like doing is extended paddles for your mag release. Okay, so if you notice, like Franke has the Infinity Elite. They're starting to put these things on waterfowl shotguns. So it's indicative of how and what they're doing for us waterfowlers now is that they're actually putting on these types of equipment on our shotguns because they're designing shotguns specifically for the waterfowler, right?
Yeah.
And so, but in for instance, like Benelli, they have a $3,000 performance level gun, and these are the parts that they're putting on them. Different variations.
Well, even Winchester has the SX models, and they have a variety. So they go all the way up to my 4-H kids shoot, and they're all the anodized large button, the mag, the release, the oversized release. But one of the good things, one of the problems I struggle with a lot of times, especially when I'm shooting the new shotgun, is trying to just get that release down, especially when it's cold, right?
Right.
So
Right.
if you have that bigger release, you can almost use the heel of your hand and hit that release if you need to. And new guns, I mean, we were talking about it earlier. I bought a new gun this year to try out to see how it did, and everything's new on it, and it has it's basically a Benelli clone, and it has the same Benelli click issue, but it's once you get those things wore in, then a lot of your problems resolve. So it's putting heavy rounds through it, a lot of rounds through it, and it's the same thing. Once you that release is used so many times, it starts to loosen up a little bit, and it becomes more comfortable. And so the more you use your equipment, as far as firearms, the better it is. And it comes to a point where you're going to wear it out at some point, right? So we're duck hunters, waterfowlers, we're very hard on our guns.
Very, very hard.
I mean, we put them in water, we put them on boats. I mean, they're always in wet conditions. So, it's taking care of those guns, keeping them oiled and lubed and all that good stuff is a big part of it. But if you can make it easier to just, I got big gloves on, it's easier to pull back. Manipulate. It's easier to release. All that stuff is not nicer. And I like your extra shell holder is my favorite.
Sure. So we'll get to that here in a second. So
I didn't know if you want to release that secret on the show or not, but let's go.
So as far as the mag or the carrier release, this part you could buy from a company. There's a company called Terran Tactical, right? They're renowned for. Terran Tactical is the one who made all the John Wick guns. The AR,
oh, really?
the Glocks and the Benelli shotguns. He specializes in making these parts. And so this is something that the waterfowl or the shotgun companies are starting to put on their waterfowl guns is this extended button. And so how easy this is that you can hit it with this or you can hit it with your palm, but you're in, right? So there's very little movement, like if you had to load it, and you're not looking for it like the little button. So it makes
how easy is it to install? Do you need a gunsmith? Or?
You do. This is one of those things where you do need a gunsmith to drill and tap. Okay, so it's simply just drill and tap. The part comes with the actual paddle as well as the screw. And there's a gunsmith in town that I take it to over at DNA Tactical. And by the way, I'm not sponsored by anybody. I'm not a factory guy. This is stuff that I research on my own and I shoot. And so I don't represent any companies, but there's a lot of companies out there that build these type of components for us waterfowlers. So that's one thing I change out to make things a lot easier.
Do you do that on all your guns?
I do.
Okay.
I do. And there's there's another company I just want to show you guys really quick. I'll reach over here, and you know, a lot of guys like to bling out their guns, right? Whether it's their AR, but why aren't you blinging out your duck gun? And so, same concept. So this right here is made by Robbie Roberts out of Arkansas, and what it is, check this out. Here, let me show it to you. Tell me what that is.
The band.
He banded his gun.
Yeah, so they sell extended bolts with the band installed. So it just gives it an extra, it doesn't look like your buddy's gun type of situation. So that's something that I put on some of my guns, or, you know, but it acts as the same thing, like a large knurled knob type of thing. And again, the paddle here is right here.
You ever been hunting with Robbie?
I have not.
Okay.
No. Do you know him?
No, I was just pull up his gun sight. I mean, it looks like is that a band you shot somewhere?
No, these are bands that he provides.
Oh, so he provides the bands.
Yep. So
I wonder if you could send him one if he'll put it on there for you.
You can get a band this year, Ron.
Yep.
Well, I got 2 last year, so that won't count.
You know, and that's one of the cool things about guns is you can do a lot of stuff, and it's a personal. Everybody's got a personal choice, and everybody's got a budget and a price range.
Sure.
I know you love your Benellis.
Right, I do.
So, what are the pros and cons of your Benelli? And we'll talk about the pros and cons of the guns that we shoot. And
Yeah. Well, we could talk about, as far as I started like everybody else, I believe, you know, I started with an 870, right? That's what we knew. Then moved up to an 1100, you know, in a Remington, in a semi-automatic. I learned really quickly that I couldn't pump fast enough to catch those ducks. So I had to have a handicap, and yes, I shoot a semi-automatic, and I've done so for 25 years plus, right? And so the big advantage, obviously, to a semi-automatic is the quicker follow-up shots, right? That's the very big advantage. And so one day I learned about Benellis were making, you know, their M1s, what they call their M1 version, way back. And so then they introduced the M1 Super 90 for waterfowlers. And this was the M1 Super 90 was one of my very first guns. And so I saved up a lot of money. I bought it from Galleons in Minnesota, just outside of Minneapolis, and it was $899. And that was a lot of money for a shotgun, right? $899 for a Benelli shotgun. And so, believe it or not, that gun is sitting right here.
Is that gun?
This is that gun right here.
You keep your guns pretty clean, Ruben.
So, well, don't give me too much credit yet. As far as the internals, I've never had to replace anything on the shotgun as far as internally, right? It's shot probably thousands upon thousands upon thousands of rounds, right? I had recently I had gotten it Cerakoted a few years ago, and I'll bring up another thing that I like doing when I bring guns out to the field, which is put a cover on it. But anyway, this has been Cerakoted, but this is going to get Cerakoted in white here in the near future.
To be your snow goose gun.
Yeah, to be a dedicated snow goose gun. But anyway, I've always thought that, you know, you always get what you pay for. Back then, that was the model and philosophy. You you pay for what you get. But I have to say that since they released the patent on the inertia guns that Benelli had held for the longest time, all of these Turkish factories started coming out with these guns, right? And there's a company out there, Rite, which I've not personally shot, but the fact is they made all the improvements that everybody complained about.
I would really love to
right?
try a Rite and see how it does.
Right, and it's basically about $600 cheaper if you go with Mara, their high end.
They're top of the
3.5.
line
Yeah.
duck hunting gun. I mean, they're built for duck hunting.
Well, it's about $1,700. Is that what they're running?
So a
No, they're like
Benelli,
12.
Benelli Camel Benelli will run you $17.99, and so you're absolutely right. A Rite full up, the Supreme one is around $1,300, but it's basically they made all the improvements, and I believe I could be mistaken. They could be made in Turkey as well. But there's so many guns out there, Stoger, Franke.
I think Rite is a Turkish gun.
Yeah. So all of these factories that adopted to it, and so I'm seeing these guns just function like just like a Benelli.
What
And
you
so-
lose though is so I bet a Gearson this year,
Okay.
which is it's the same thing. So I took the patent Turkish gun.
Right.
What you lose is a fit and finish, right? So
and finish,
so I'm going to trade the fit and finish, but at the same point, you don't get all the bells and whistles that you're getting with a Benelli or a Rite, the high end. Cool as the Rite is it's supposed to be a pretty simple. It's a simple gun to clean. You drop out the whole assembly and you can clean it all pretty easy. It's designed for waterfowlers. That's what it's designed for. With the Gearson, you don't get the fit and finish, but you also don't get the price tag. I think I paid $450.
Right.
I paid $450 for a gun, and it should function the same exact way as the Benelli functions.
Sure.
So I'll tell you from personal experience, it does have a Benelli click, just like the other Benellis.
Right.
But it got better. I shot it for the first time shooting sporting clays, and it got better after about 50 rounds, and that's with light loads. So you're shooting 7 to 9 shot, right? So that's shooting light loads. If I ran 3.5s through it, I think it loosens that gun up a lot more. I think it's going to be a lot better gun. So I mean, they're all the way from the $450 market to you can go $2,500 or $2,600, and it's just you're getting the extras, right? So you're getting all the fancy stuff that you could probably go do it to a Gearson, but why? You spent $450 for a gun, and my thought process is it's $450. If it's a garbage gun, I'm out $450. No harm, no foul.
Right.
But if it's a good gun and it functions well and it shoots well, I've got a really good firearm for half the prices I would pay for it somewhere else.
Yeah. I would say, and I'll tell you, I've shot and broken in a lot of Benellis, and a lot of them don't function as smoothly as you would think with the
price tag.
With the price tag, but you're right. I've had to shoot a bunch of 3-inch guns to be really, really confident with that gun to make sure that it's blind worthy, right? But something that you touched on is it doesn't matter if it's $450 or $1,800. It's what you're confident with. You got to have that confidence going into the duck blind, and every time you pull that gun up, you're going to be able to hit what you aim at, right? And so I've been in duck blinds with some of the best shooters, and they're not shooting Benellis. They're shooting something other than a Benelli. Are they shooting them just as good? Absolutely, because we have the confidence in that particular system.
When I've shot 3 years, I have a TriStar TSA Magnum.
Yes.
And, the TriStars, so I'm a big one, kind of like with you, I do a ton of research, but I research a little different. So I look at the gun and I say, oh, this is a cheap gun. Let's see how it does. And so I'll start going through all the reviews. And so when I started first looking at TriStars, you can get a semi-automatic that just shoot 3 inches for $150. I mean, they were dirt cheap. Well, what happened was a lot of the guys shooting trap and skeet and all this other stuff started seeing this gun. And they said, well, it's a cheap gun. We'll see how it does. And some of the guys were taking their Benellis and putting them back in the closet, and they were shooting TriStars from then on.
Right.
And so that TriStar Magnum that I have, I've shot it for 3 years, and I think I've maybe had 2 or 3 misfires the entire time. And we hunt pretty hard with it. And for me, that gun's been a great gun, and I didn't need a new gun, but I'm like, I want to try this gun and see how it does. And I'm comfortable with that gun. I like that gun. I like the way it shoots. I like the way it feels. And so part of that's going to be how the gun fits you, how it feels for you. We talk about, I have some guys that teach concealed weapons classes, and one of my guys, he will never tell you what gun to buy. He says, go try it for yourself, figure out what fits you. And so I think it's the same thing even when we go to shotguns. So, for me, taking that step, if I can get that entry level gun at $450, it functions the same as a Benelli. It should shoot relatively the same as a Benelli, and it may not be quite as comfortable as a higher end model. Then that's kind of an entry. Okay, now I don't buy a $2,500 gun that I hate.
Sure.
So if we can get our hands on guns and try, shotguns are a lot harder. I can go to a gun range and rent a handgun all day long, just about any model you want. Shotguns, we don't have that in the waterfowl world. We can't go say, hey, let me rent that shotgun. I want to take it out for the weekend and drop it in the lake. It just doesn't work that way. So, Ron shot Versamax before he shot his Benelli.
With me, something I found with guns is I started out hunting. I kind of got into haphazardly, and my gun I was shooting to start with was the gun I had in high school. I had a Mossberg pump that my dad bought from Big Five when I was 16. That was my 16-year-old birthday present. And I shot ducks with that, you know. The problem is you have a lot of complications with those lower end guns sometimes.
Sure.
Like it won't eject, so you have to go and clean that gun well, or you can only shoot a 2 3/4 shell when you want to shoot a 3-inch. And so the lower priced guns, they function great for new duck hunters. And if you get a Remington 870 and that's the gun you start off hunting with, just do it, and it's probably going to work great for you. But if you really get into duck hunting and you're going really hard and you're going as hard as Ruben is, where you're shooting tons of geese every day, or like you're doing a 100-man limit, you're going to put wear and tear on those low-end guns to where they just can't handle that workload. And so with my guns, I've always been workload based. Like, what can this gun handle? And I started off with a Mossberg. It did great. It handles a low workload. Then I bought a Remington 1170, the semi-auto Remington. And then we bought the Versamax. And then I have the CZ gun. And then I finally got a Benelli, and I would say the Benelli, it's smooth, it's light, it swings good, it shoots good, and it's a workhorse. And so it has all the components. I mean, a lot of people make fun of people with Benellis. They say, "Oh, you're a Benelli guy. It's because you have tons of money." No. It's a workhorse of a gun, and it swings well, it shoots well. It does have that click. Ruben promised he'd teach me how to fix that this year, but I mean, it's a workhorse of a gun. Now, I hunted with a kid that had a brand new Super Eagle Benelli 3 or whatever it is. And he hunts ridiculously hard. He hunts harder than all three of us combined. He busted the stock on that gun, you know? And so, like, even a high priced gun, if you're putting it through the ringer, it's just like running your car at higher RPMs the whole time. It's going to burn out unless it's like a super race car, you know? And so if I were to say what type of gun you should buy, I'm going to go back with Brian. I'm going to say, get what you can afford and get what you enjoy, you know? And if you don't like it, you could usually trade a gun in for about 70% of its value,
right?
You know? And then you could go get another one.
Sell it to somebody if you decide that you want
to me.
Yeah.
And,
but if you decide if that's a cool thing about duck hunters that I've realized, especially in Southern Nevada in our community, when we've decided that we want to upgrade to something, if we're not going to keep it just so we have it, and a lot of times Ronna will keep stuff for backups for other guys that we bring hunting, but a lot of guys will say, "Hey, I'm done with this. I'm not going to use it anymore. I'll sell it to you for half what I paid for it," right? So that new duck hunter coming up can get a gun, and he can have a decent gun to start with. I think the problem with duck hunting is all hunting's expensive. Duck hunting can be ridiculously expensive. You can go buy the brand new best gadget every week, and you can spend a ton of money. You can go buy a $2,500 shotgun. You can go buy a $5,000 over under. I was shooting sporting clays the other day, and the one gun he was shooting was $8,000. His other gun was $15,000. So you can go buy those guns, and they're going to function just fine. They're beautiful guns. Don't get me wrong. But a new duck hunter coming in, a lot of times a young duck hunter doesn't need to go buy the top of the line everything. You can function just fine. Cody, my son, shoots an 870 Magnum with a 30-inch Hastings barrel on it.
That he bought
secondhand. And that gun works for him. He doesn't like shooting my semi-autos because he's not used to it. Right. I shot his gun one day, and I missed the second duck because I didn't realize I had to jack around in. And so I'm so used to shooting a semi-auto, I can't go back to a pump.
Show us how that went, Brian. Was it like, boom?
It was like,
what?
Boom. Why can't I pull the trigger again? And so you just have to find where you're comfortable financially, where you're comfortable fit, because not every gun's going to fit everybody appropriately. But what I will tell you is you can go, and not so much now, but you used to be able to go buy a 20 gauge single shot synthetic stock break barrel shotgun for $100.
Our buddy at Armscore still has cheap ones like that.
Do not buy a break barrel single shot 20 gauge synthetic stock gun, because what's going to happen is you're going to shoot it twice and you're never going to want to shoot again.
Right.
It's going to hurt bad.
Right.
So the cool thing about it is every step of a shotgun, when we start with a break barrel, there's nothing to take that recoil out of that round. It's going straight back into your shoulder, and when you put a synthetic stock on it, it's going to be super lightweight. It's going to move a lot. When you move to a bolt or to a pump gun, that is going to take a little bit of it out, a little bit more than the brake barrel, but still not very much. And then you start getting a semi-auto. Some of that inertia is going to go into making that gun function. It's going to cycle you around. So you're going to take some of that and convert it into rotational energy and other things. So they're a lot more comfortable to shoot. And we've noticed with kids shooting is the kids can a lot of times handle a 12 gauge as long as they can handle the weight. They feel more comfortable shooting a 12 gauge than a 20 gauge because they feel less recoil with it because the gun's a little bit heavier. It doesn't move as bad.
Yeah, I remember last year with my kid, he was shooting that 20 gauge TriStar, the youth one, and it was a good fit for him. And then I handed him, I was like, here, try this gun. It's a Benelli. He's like, no, you can keep that one.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, so we would say, hey, get your kid a 20 gauge, but a lot of times they're going to be more comfortable shooting a 12 gauge if you can get one that they can handle. Right. Now, I wouldn't get them a 12 gauge with a 34-inch barrel on it and think that they're going to be able to handle it. But if you get them a 26-inch, 28-inch barrel, they're not a 6-year-old kid. They're going to usually be pretty good with that. And so if you can get them a 410, 410s will kill ducks. There's a lot of guys that shoot 410s, and that's all they want to shoot to kill ducks.
And 410s is a great gun to start kids on. Man.
And it's got, I mean, that's an easy gun to shoot. That's beautiful. But, just find what works for you. And don't wait till you're getting on ducks to find out if a gun's going to work for you.
Right.
Find a buddy that has a gun that you think you might want. I'll let you shoot any gun I got, and
you say you bring the ammo.
Yeah, I'll
bring the ammo. You bring the gun.
And so if you do that, then you get a chance to shoot other guns and find out kind of what fits with you best. And the other thing I think a lot of guys do is they buy a brand new gun. I'm a fairly new hunter. I'm going to buy a brand new gun. They don't tune that gun to fit them. There's a reason that they put those shims in with the gun.
Absolutely. And even the length of pull, that's something that's overlooked all the time. I mean, that's one of the biggest things is the length of pull. Having a gun the proper length of stock is what I'm talking about. Because a lot of us don't consider, or a lot of the new hunters don't consider the fact that, so they buy it during the summertime, they got their t-shirt on, and so, oh God, this feels good. And so come around October, November, when you're in a duck blind and you have a heavier coat, you have just changed the way you mount that gun because it's not going to fit properly because you've added maybe 1 or 2 inches of padding on to a length of pull that was possibly too long for you anyway. And so that's one of the most important things, modifications that you can do to a gun besides the shims. Benellis are known for their shims, and you just got to find the right one. A lot of guys don't know that, and they say, oh my God, this gun's a piece of shit. And I can't hit anything with it. It shoots high, right? Well, naturally, Benellis do shoot high from the factory, but you can fix some of that with your shooting style, with your shims. But the length of pull is the number one thing that I would recommend for people to change, and you'll improve your percentage of hits.
Well, I think we make that mistake. So we buy hunting gear off season a lot of times because A, you're getting ready to go hunting.
Right.
And B, a lot of times if you hit it off season, it's a little bit cheaper, right? So you can if you get it before people are getting ready to go hunting season, a lot of times you can find some clearance stuff. You can find stuff.
They have like blowout sales after season.
So here's what happens is, I normally wear an extra large jacket, right? And so when I bought my wader jacket, they didn't have an extra large, and it was on sale. It was right at the end of the season. I'm like, I'm gonna buy a double X because that's the next closest thing. I am so glad I bought a double X because we don't think about it. So you're not buying an extra large jacket like you're buying an extra large jacket to wear out to go to the club or something like that.
Right.
You're going to put it over a pair of waders. You're going to usually have some thermals on. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'll have another jacket underneath it, just depending on the weather. And so now if I would have had an extra large, it's going to be really uncomfortable. It's going to be really restrictive.
Yeah, binding.
So we have to think about those things when you're buying a set of waders. You're not going to want to wear your thermals and that's it. You're going to probably want to have a pair of pants with your thermals. Right. So make sure you have the room in things to make them work. If you're a guy that's kind of in between, buy the stouts. It's going to make you more comfortable. It's going to make you more successful.
Try them on off season too.
Yeah. But But you have to. You talk about we do it. Oh, I bought this in the summertime. I'm buying an extra large. I put on. Oh, this feels great. And then now I need it. It's 10 degrees below zero. I'm going to go out and hunt. And guess what? My jacket doesn't fit over my gear.
Right. Uncomfortable.
Hey, I want to talk about your decoy bag.
Sure.
So let's grab that. You can throw your headset off real quick if you want to put it up on the table. So
right. I'll put this away for right now.
moving decoys is a big thing of waterfowl hunting. I don't think we've discussed on the show that much. And me and Brian have kind of a patent method we do it with. While you're getting, I'll talk a little bit.
I bring a whip out and whip Ron. And
yeah, what I like to do is I use something similar to Rubens, but I put mine in a big, heavy black tote, huh, Brian?
yeah. And the cool thing about the heavy black totes is they float, right? So you throw them out on the water and they'll float out. And so you can kind of set your decoys from that tote. It makes it really good. And if we'll sometimes just take I use a game cart if it's me and Cody going out. And you can take those totes and they'll fit kind of in between the wheels of the game cart. And you can drag them out to the blind with you that way. So it makes it kind of easy to use. And they're functional and they just keep things a little bit more organized, I think.
Yeah, this is what they look like right here. It's just the Home Depot totes are the ones that, this is on Zorro, but everybody knows them. These ones right here are the ones that we get. We get the ones that can fit a whole bag about the size of Rubens in there. And, man, they are sweet. And it keeps your decoys from being banged around, so. But Ruben has how many years have you been moving decoys for her?
25 plus.
25 plus. Yeah. And after 25 plus years of experience, he's going to share with you today what he likes.
Right. So, first of all, this is a Rig'em Right decoy bag. This is their 12-slot, full-body duck decoy bag. Okay. So the reason why I brought this out, I'm always trying to be efficient, trying to make things easy in the field for me as much as possible. Right? So all of us, or at some point, you're going to have some sort of what we call a blind bag, right? So that's where we put our snacks, we put our drinks, extra shells, that sort of thing, and we stuff everything in there. Some of us even would put our robo duck or spinning wing in there.
I make fun of Brian all the time. I'm like, oh, here comes Dora with his backpacks.
Yeah. So I use a hunting backpack because then what I can do is I can put my shotgun on the hunting backpack. Everything's on my back, and then I have my hands free to do whatever else we need to do, and it's comfortable. So
he has like 3 though when we go on the boat.
Yeah, because you want me to have 3 because otherwise you don't have a thermocell.
Go ahead. Okay, let's see
so
it, man.
Depending on your style of hunting, I do a lot of walk-in hunts. Not using a boat yet.
Yeah.
One day soon. But the bottom line is that you're carting in your equipment, right? And so when you're carting it in, you're sitting there strapping or bunging it down. Like let's talk about Overton. Everybody's got a cart, they're bunging everything down and trying to get all their stuff together. And so over the years, this is what it's come to. This is a brand new bag that I just got, but I've been using bags that you can zipper up or cinch down, right? And
yeah.
So the concept here, and think about this for a second, to be lighter and to be more efficient and be more organized, I've completely eliminated my blind bag. So I don't carry a blind bag with my shells in it. I carry everything in here, right? So this particular bag, which I like and I had recently purchased, is the fact that, so it has zippers here and storage here, right? So where you could keep your license, all sorts of things that you would normally carry in your blind bag. So this is dedicated for whatever was in your blind bag. So at the same time, you can still carry decoys, right? And in here, I typically carry like those soft cooler packs. You can stick it in one of the slots. So you use up maybe 2 or 3 slots. Also, there's guys that are running spinning wing decoys that have specially made spinning wing backpacks.
Yeah, so decoy bags.
Decoy bag that you're carrying. I stick them in here, right? And I, as far as any of the motion decoys that I have, stick them in here. So they're all in the same place. You can stick your extra batteries here. You can stick the wings in here, right? So everything is, and you can carry at least 7 to 8 decoys on top of all that gear. So typically I run this bag and then I'll have another bag that's a full just set for just decoys, a dozen decoys.
Do you both have Rigmarite bags, or they?
There's different ones.
Yeah.
They're open top ones, right? But I like this. I use that for that specific purpose.
Where do you put your shells at? Do you put your shells in the front of that?
I could put it here, or actually you could put them down in here.
What do you use the big pocket of the front for?
So this, I could put wings, and you could put your
Okay.
wings in here, right? I could put my calls in here. You could put extra bottles of water because I have a dog that I hunt with, and so usually I'm carrying a little bit more water for him and snacks, right? So, and the cool thing is that you just
How do you keep your dog from drinking the pond water?
What's that?
How do you keep?
His dog is above that. I heard
Is
what he
he?
paid for his dog. It's above pond water.
Your dog don't
It's
drink
drinking,
the.
it's
Yeah,
drinking
he don't drink the
Perrier.
pond water.
No pond water.
Really?
He drinks Perrier.
Not Perrier.
How do you stop him from doing that? Like my dog, I'll be out there and all of a sudden he's like, I'm like, well,
Just have the water available for him.
just be a good dog owner.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
You also feed your dogs oysters, so
So the bottom line is that you can zip it up. Right?
Okay.
That's the thing is that I don't know how many times this has happened where you put it on a tailgate and the darn thing just falls over, everything falls out or whatever the case, or it could be in your cart and it falls down. And so it protects the decoys or the more expensive ones like your spinning wing decoys and all the other type of motion decoys. So I wanted to share that. That's something that
That's one of your hacks.
yeah.
What do you haul that on a cart or do you carry it?
Cart.
Do you cart it?
Cart everything, and so everything just comes off the truck. Just put it on the.
What kind of cart do you use? You use a game cart or do you have a special custom made one?
So 2 years ago, I believe, Rogers Rogers came out with a game cart, right? So it's not your standard. Everybody uses the deer hauler type of cart. And then the improvement on that was Cabela's made a Cabela's Magnum cart, which was a little bit bigger. And so, which is that deluxe one right there that you're clicking on. But Rogers came out with a cart that was specifically made for us duck hunters, okay? I think it was like $150, and Rogers is the only one that's making a cart this big. And so I put like a jet sled on it or a sled, and I bungee that down, and that's where everything goes is on that sled, right? So it's like a shelf or a storage, and it hauls quite a bit of.
So this
That's
one,
it right there.
the 600-pound one?
Yep, it's called the Tough Man. So 600 decoy, and it folds in half, right? And you can load it in your truck by yourself because you just put it up on your tailgate and then just lift it up and it rolls right in. But it's that cart there, and I have to say it's ginormous, right?
Yeah.
It is a big cart, and I know they put them on.
How does it hold up going in the water and just running down the trails? Is it rusting out or anything? No?
No, it's got bigger tires on it, right? They're not, obviously, it's tubeless. So I love it. It makes things a lot easier to push and carry out there.
Do you put your soft bags, do you stack like 2 soft bags on there and then strap them down?
Yeah, I have the sled, and the sled fits right on there.
Okay.
So it's a sled that, it has at least 4 or 5 inch sides to it, and then you can just put these bags on there and just bungee them down.
We were telling Brian we do something similar to the sled, but we use the big Home Depot totes that will fit in.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, and it's a little bit cheaper. They break a little bit easier when it gets cold. They just snap.
Right.
I'm sure those sleds hold up a little bit better, but if you're trying to do it the cheap man's way, this one we really do it. So we'll put that bag inside the tote, put the lid on, stack another tote up, and it's just a lot more secure.
well, I scored a jet sled for this year too. So
Did you?
yeah, I got it at a yard sale.
You got a jet sled?
Yeah, I got a jet sled from a yard sale for like $5. I mean,
Those things are, I don't know how, they come in.
yeah, I think this is kind of a medium-sized one. I'd have to I don't remember for sure, but that's the cool thing. And does that decoy bag, does that one have drainage holes on it?
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the things that,
It might.
we run Dakota. Ron runs mostly Dakota decoys. And we have Dakota bags. And that's the great thing about it is because what happens is you throw that bag in the water, you go to pick up decoys, it gets full of water. I'm carrying around an extra 100 pounds of water. So you want it to be able to, they're still going to be heavy. Those bags get wet, they're going to be heavy, but you want it to be able to drain. So, it's kind of something you could get a duffel bag, but you're going to have a duffel bag full of water. Exactly. And so it's just about really.
Yeah, these are the ones we run right here.
How you, little things that you wouldn't think would make your life a lot easier, make your life a lot easier.
Right.
And the cool thing about these decoy bags is we can throw them. I can strap one to the front of the kayak, and one to the back. Ron straps one to the front and one to the back. And so you can bring a couple dozen decoys out with you fairly easy. And when we're done with them, the decoys are all out of the bag. We just throw them back into the reeds. And if they get a little bit wet, when we pick them up, the water's going to drain out of them. We can load the decoys back up, load them back on the kayak, sponge them, and go on our way. Versus trying to, what I hate about this, just the bags, the mesh bags with the string draw on them, right? You got to put your decoys out. I have never pulled a decoy out of one of those bags where I didn't have decoys tangled up in other decoys.
Exactly.
And they're banging around on each other, knocking your paint off your decoys.
And that's why I've strictly gone to slot bags.
And the slot bags.
Because we spend so much money on decoys, to your point, when you're running like Dakotas.
Bring one of those Dakotas out and show them it.
The flock head Dakotas.
Yeah.
And even, I have decoys that are by Higdon, the battleship foam decoys. And this is a Dakota that Ron's talking about. So this is a flock head, and so you're not banging it, you're not putting it in that in the mesh bag. It's not for everybody. It just depends on their style of hunting. I know that we use carts, but there's guys. I've been in marshes where I'm dragging carts and dragging that sled behind me in water, right? So whatever's easier, but this is something that could help making life easier on flat surfaces and getting out to your blind in Overton.
Well, those felt heads, they knock around so easy and knock the stuff off them so easy.
And then you got to buy new heads. You got to get them reflocked, or
reflocked, and then some of these Higdons, like this Higdon right here. Again, this is fully flocked. This is fully flocked. So when you feel this it's a fully.
Do you like that?
I do.
I've heard guys say they love it or they hate it because they say some get moisture on them and then they gloss up and people don't like that. But then other guys are like, if you have the money, do it. It's the best thing you can do.
I do like them because they don't shine, right? So that's key with plastic is the shine. I've noticed ducks will flare. You're sitting there wondering what the hell's going on. Where are they flaring off of? You're looking at your setup, your camouflage, you got paint on or whatever the case may be. Your buddies, you basically buried them in a hole, and so there's nothing going on. But there's times when I've seen ducks, they'll just look at decoys and they'll just flare off.
Well, what I see a lot too is, I'm not. We don't have a flambeaus or anything like that, just because we've had the ability to be able to upgrade. But one of the things I see about those is they're heavy decoys. They're really heavy decoys. They are going to be glossy, and so you're going to have that shine off of them. But what happens when you have a super heavy decoys like that? The foam fill are great because they're a bigger decoy, but they can stay light because they have the buoyancy to them. When you have a heavy decoy, it's not going to move. And so ducks do not sit on the water perfectly still and don't move an inch. So they want to see a little bit of movement. So if you can have a decoy that's a little bit lighter that has the ability to move a little bit, and I've actually watched some guys that it's how they rig their decoys. So most decoys will have good decoys. If you're buying a quality decoy, you'll have 2 or 3 spots where you can attach your weights to. And some of the guys are taking only, some of them will have fronts, some will be in the back, some will be in the middle, and it gives that duck a different movement from all the other ducks around it. So it's things like that can increase your success without costing you any more money, right? So the name of the game is you want your decoy spread to look as natural as possible. And so if
100%.
Every single decoy is in the same direction, you set them all up and they're in a perfect arc and not a single decoy is moving, especially, Southern Nevada, duck hunting season, there's not a lot of wind a lot of days. You'll get there and there'll be 0 wind. So you want some motion. And so, I've had some good luck with some packables that I have that are super lightweight that it doesn't take any wind to move them, right? So you get that motion out of them. We use ripplers on ours a lot of times. We use a rippler or a quiver disc or something like that just to get a little bit of motion out of the water.
I can't find quiver discs anymore.
Quiver disc.
Like the Lucky Duck quiver discs, the little gray ones you put in the water that ripple.
Yeah.
So and
Because I always broke.
Yeah, I mean I think we'd get 2 hunts out of them and have to replace them. But I don't even know what brand it is anymore, but it's a quiver duck and it's the same way, but you have it's more sealed. And so what it's doing is it's putting ripples off on those ripples. If you put a couple decoys fairly close to it, it'll put that ripple into that decoy, and that decoy will move naturally without any wind. Scott Fowler has a rippler that it was from probably the 50s or the 60s, maybe the 80s, I don't know, but this thing's older than Ron and I think. But that is the most motion I've ever seen put off out of a motion duck like that. So, and it just puts up tons of ripples. And I'm like, man, we got to figure out how to make that one work. So, it's just, if you can only afford the cheap decoys, buy the cheap decoys because they're better than nothing. Right. But as you get a chance, take and buy a half a dozen good decoys and mix them in with your spread. And then eventually move those old decoys out and give them to the brand new hunter that's coming in. It will change your ability to pull ducks.
Absolutely. I agree. I couldn't agree more. And one of the things I'd love to share with your listeners what I've learned over the years, detail is everything. The little details is everything, right? And so over the years, I've seen guys, and this is what their decoys look like. So they got dirt on them.
Mud everywhere.
Mud, and they don't pay attention to that specific detail. But that's not natural, right? Obviously, it's not natural. And so I reason why I'm maybe consistent more than some guys is that I take into account those little details. So I'll give you a little detail that I do. And it's talking about detail. And my wife is watching. She'll know what I'm talking about because I'm OCD about certain things. So this is my secret right here. 303, right? So everybody there's been YouTube stuff out there with armoring their ducks and stuff like that. So the best I found, so in comparison, just really quick, I 303 this duck earlier today. And so this is...
Yeah, the color just pops way more.
Right. Okay, so going back to our
Can you hold them both up to the camera like this?
Talk about our whole entire system, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about our system, that slot bags, so they don't scratch and they don't ding up each other. That's the other part of this detail, is that clean your ducks, guys and gals, right? Clean your ducks to make them look as natural as possible. I clean them every time I go out, right? Every time. And so this product here,
what does that ritual look like? Is that the night before? Is that when you're in the field putting them in the water? Is that...
No, as far as...
When do you clean them? Yeah.
When I get home. So I could do
like after a hunt, you go home and clean your ducks before you put them away?
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure. I take a lot of times I'll go through the car wash, spray them down, right? Put them all in the truck of my bed and spray them down, and then take them home. By the time they're home, they're dry. So then I can start this process right here. It sounds like a lot of work, guys, and it is, right?
Yeah.
If you only have a dozen decoys, or maybe 2 dozen decoys, or even half a dozen, treat them like they were your brand new white Nikes that you just got when you were 13 years old. And that's how I treat these ducks, right? Because they're expensive.
Yeah.
You want them to last long, and so you want them to look as natural. Or when you first open the box of Dakota decoys, oh my God, look how pretty these are, right? I've been using this for quite some time. The reason why is because I found this product right here. It's aerospace protected, right? You could get it protected. You could get it on Amazon. I think they're $15 for this bottle, right? And so, it doesn't create that sheen. It's a matte finish, and it's a UV protectant. And what it does, guys that own boats, this is what they use to keep their boats in really, really showroom condition. Because it rehabilitates that plastic or whatever that's out in the sun all day, or on the boat slip, or in storage. And so I started using this on decoys, and it's phenomenal the protection it gives and what it looks like on the water, and it looks like showroom brand new decoys, right? And that's what I do with my decoys.
It's just crazy the difference between those two decoys just by something that simple.
Yeah,
You can't really see it on the camera, but it's a like distinct difference.
very distinct. The colors pop, because as you know, you're a Dakota dealer, right? There's like 16 or 17 finishes they put on this particular duck before it left the factory, and so it does make it pop. And so that's what I do when I'm done duck hunting. As tired as you. And I may not. Sometimes I don't do it on that day, but I know that before I go out again, I'm gonna get them sprayed down and then get this on.
I'm not that detail oriented, but if my ducks do have mud on them, I have a cheap pressure washer from Amazon. Let's see which one it is.
Right.
That plugs in, so it plugs into the wall. Where is it? It's this one. It's this one. Cheap.
Yeah, those are great.
Yeah, might be even a little less expensive than that.
Harbor Freight has them for like under $100.
You can find them on, like, Noah's Auction has them on there all the time if you can find them there. One of the other things, you talk about detail. And
Hold on a second. So what I do after hunts is if I have mud on my decoys, I will take this pressure washer and I will spray them off, and then before the season, I'll go through and detail all my ducks. I'll take the bad ones out, I'll pressure wash all of them, and then I'll send Brian a picture so he can make fun of me.
And he'll order like 10 more dozen decoys. So that's just the way it goes every year. But, you talk about attention to detail. So we go out and we throw decoys, right? And we get this beautiful spread out, and we just throw the decoys out. Yep, we're good. Go sit in the blind. Well, here's what happens a lot of times is if you're not careful, your wire from your weight's going to flip, and it's going to be around the neck of a duck. And so we talk again, a duck comes in, and that's not normal, and so they're going to see that. So if you have ducks flaring, look at your decoys, look them over really good, look them over before you come in. I know sometimes it's dark, so you have a hard time seeing in kind of what's coming, but take an extra second just to look at all your decoys before you go back in to make sure you haven't flipped the wire over them. Because we've had it happen. We're flaring ducks, and it's early, and as soon as the sun comes up, you look and you're like, "Oh, that's why."
It could have been just that little thing, and I agree. I've had those experiences where, what's going on, and it's just that one cord that's half wrapped or just over the body of the decoy, and I'm out of here. Right? It's just, I guess it's just cheap insurance, just to make sure.
Yeah, just double check.
It's only going to take you a half a second just to take a look. And that's the attention and detail that, you're going to have to acquire that skill set, because to be successful, and once you start becoming successful and you're paying attention to these small details, you're going to do it more often, you're going to do it more consistently, because you want that success. You want it to look as natural as possible.
And it becomes second nature, so you get into a habit. Right. You do things over and over again, it gets into a habit, and that's the one thing. So you have to realize ducks are not dumb animals. So everything in the world is trying to eat a duck. So a duck is they're not looking for the best place to be sometimes. They're looking for what's wrong with the situation that's going to put them in danger. So if there's anything that's out of the normal for them, they're going to go somewhere else that they feel a lot more comfortable with. So you want to set yourself up to where they're looking at yours, and it's as natural and inviting to them as possible. And I think we miss that a lot. So, I had a day where I couldn't figure why these ducks were flaring. I mean, everything was right. I didn't have any issues with anything. My spread wasn't bad, and I couldn't figure it out. And then the sun comes up a little bit better, and there's a coyote walking the dike across from me. And so, that's what it took. Those ducks saw that predator in there, and they wanted nothing to do with it. They started coming down there. Nope, I'm not going there. So it's just trying to figure out if they're flaring. Figure out what's going on. Are you hidden well enough? Are you covered up? Are you staring at the ducks, smiling at them? Because that'll turn them around. Your decoys, are they set? Ron's notorious about, I think he gets out of the blind about 50 times the first hour we hunt, and tweaks this and then tweaks that.
Well, I go check and make sure there's no cords over the neck. I go make sure there's no mud on them. I go and move them because I'm like, they don't like that hole there. They're going out further, so I'm going to throw them out further. So I push them.
I'll admit, I'm a tweaker too.
Not that kind of tweaker, just a different.
That kind of tweaker. You know, sometimes it just doesn't feel right, and you might want to move things around.
And then you ask somebody else to do it, and they do it wrong. You do that. Hey, throw that out further. No, that's this. You know, you come back in the blind.
Yeah,
I'm
I
gonna.
would go out there.
I think that's called OCD.
And
then Rock will go grab 4 or 5 coots.
Hey, back to the product you're using and the decoys you're putting on. With your decoys being expensive, the average set of decoys is not cheap, especially if you buy some quality ones. You said that product you use is for protecting boats and things of that nature. Well, your ducks are also made out of plastic, so you might as well be protecting your ducks, and so you're gonna have a longer life with them if you're taking care of them. I mean, that's why we put armor all on our cars and things of that nature. And
if, excuse me, if you read the product description on there, it rehabilitates that whatever material to bring it back to its original color. And that's why you're seeing that, right?
Yeah.
You can do that with water and soap, but it doesn't last as long.
it doesn't work as good either.
Right.
I've tried.
So,
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that use Dawn dish soap, and there's thousands of hacks that.
Armor All, I've seen, it gets flaky too.
Well,
Armor All, and it dries. I believe it dries that plastic.
It does. It does. So
like in your car.
when I was a kid, I worked for a car wash, and that's the worst thing you can do for your car is put Armor All on it because it dries it out. So we would a lot of times, the detailers will use a leather conditioner even on the plastics because it helps hydrate it a little bit better, and so those things the thing I don't like about Armor All is it makes everything slippery, right? You're trying to grab a duck and it's spitting all over the place. Our dexterity is already reduced, man. We got decoy gloves on.
You're old.
Well, yeah, that too. But you got decoy gloves on. I wear in the winter. I'll wear heavy decoy gloves. So trying to pick ducks up and move them, and they're slipping and they get wet, and it makes it even worse. And so that's a big thing. The other one that we overlook a lot of times is we get late season here. It gets pretty cold depending on where we're hunting. So you'll set all your ducks and you'll splash them around in the water. And the sun comes up, and there's big old boogers hanging from all of their beaks because they're freezing. And so you just need to, be cognizant of things like that. It's just all those little cues that are going to give you the advantage to that stuff. So it's how we set them. It's taking the time. Maybe we don't throw the decoy out. Maybe we go set our decoys in place. And there's times where you just need to get them out there a little bit further. We don't have the advantage that they have in the Texases and the Arkansas where they're coming through trees. So their focus is on the trees and they're finding a hole. Here we're hunting wide open. They can see for miles and miles. Any little thing wrong, they're going to find it. If you throw them in a bunch of trees.
Shot at for miles and miles.
And that too, but you throw them in the middle of a bunch of trees, they've got to focus on everything else around them. So they can miss those little cues. They're not going to miss them when you're hunting open water like we do a lot of times. So
on sunny days.
Exactly.
Everything is just magnified on those ponds out there.
Yeah.
For sure.
Now, there's another thing you want to talk about. One thing I want to go back to the storage. And me and Brian talked about this a lot. We talked about it on the kayak podcast a while back, is how we store things for long trips on kayaks. Now, when it comes to hunting off of boats, something that I have found super effective, and I was telling you before the show, is your seats. If you have bucket seats that are very nice, and you have storage units in there, because you don't have a lot of room on the boat, and you put more stuff on the boat, the more weight you have, the slower you move, and the more likely you are to sink it. Right, Brian?
Yeah. You seem to like to sink boats. For some reason.
And so the more compact you get, and the less space you could utilize, kind of like what you had. On the boat, they have these bucket seats, and I'll find them when Brian starts talking, Ruben starts talking. But they are super effective for hunting off of boats, and that is something that the Hymus has taught me. And if you have a new guy coming on the boat, you say, hey, this is your seat. You're allowed to put whatever you want in it. Leave your bags in the truck.
Everything's got to fit in the bucket.
Everything's got to fit in the bucket. And you can. I mean, you can fit tons of stuff in that bucket.
Yeah, we put a lot, and we'll usually have, so Ron and I'll hunt, and we'll bring, so when we're hunting, we're bringing stuff kind of for everybody. So especially early season for us, mosquitoes are just gnarly out here. I mean, they'll eat you alive. And so we'll bring thermocells with us. And so that stuff takes space. And we'll bring
and all the decoys,
extra masks and stuff like that, because most people, that's just not something that they commonly have.
There you go, Brian.
And with new hunters, they tend to want to look at the ducks. So it's like, oh, look, there's a duck. Their ducks are over there, and they're pointing and looking. And so when they do that, if they don't have a mask or something on to kind of camouflage it, the movement's going to be bad enough. But you put your big old white face out there, and you're going to flare the ducks every single time. So we'll provide that stuff so they can have a more of an advantage, and we can all have more opportunity of success. So Ron will have like 12 cans of oysters in one of those, and some like 12-year-old Slim Jims.
They work. Yeah. You're all welcome to my Slim Jims. Anyways, you gotta have your snacks. So, these buckets work really well for storage, especially in tight confined spaces where you can't have tons of bags. But if you had your bag also, like if you're like, hey, I'm gonna bring my own decoys, and you had that bag, you'd be like, all my stuff's in this bag. That'd also be acceptable.
Well, and these cool thing about these seats is a lot of times when we're hunting, if you're on a boat and you're in a flat seat, there's nowhere to really rest against us. They're sitting upright all day. These have backs on them. You can lean back a little bit. You can kind of put your feet up on the side of the boat if you want to. It just makes it a little bit more comfortable experience.
They also rotate.
They rotate, so you can swing on ducks, you know, and so they're convenient. And the other thing is, Ron and I'll keep stuff in there if we know we're going to be back on the boat the next day or the next week. We'll keep some of the stuff that we know we're going to use the next weekend, and we'll just keep them right in the seats. So we pull that seat out of the boat, bring it inside, we take it right back out in the boat and sit it, and we already have half of the stuff we need. You know, they also work really well when you sink your boat because they kind of float a little bit.
Yeah,
so
we didn't lose anything because they're on the buckets.
We didn't lose anything because stuff was in the buckets. That's the other thing. I mean, we're hunting.
If you don't go over the top,
yeah,
it
we
is
don't go over the top.
waterproof.
But if you're in an environment like Ron and I,
it's waterproof till right here, Ruben.
Ron and I hunt.
Right where it opens.
We hunt on boats and kayaks quite a bit. Early season, we're on the boat. Later in the season, we'll take kayaks out to some of the other spots. One of the things that I bought, and I bought just kind of the safety thing, just kind of, that's kind of nice, just in case, floating gun cases. So it's going to save your gun. And then if you're moving, put your gun in the dang gun case, right? So if something horrible happens, like we sink a boat,
you're not allowed to shoot off a moving boat anyway. So
yeah,
put it away.
Yeah, exactly. That's just the same thing as shooting out of a car, right? So, but if something happens, that gun case will float. We had an incident where we actually sunk a boat with somebody in the boat. His cell phone was sitting on my floating gun case. And that was the only cell phone that we had that would work in the area that we were with. My cell phone was out of range. Ron dropped his in the water and lost it. And so we had one other cell phone, and it sat on top of that gun case and floated when we sunk the boat. So we were able to make some phone calls and stuff like that. So it's just security. I mean, especially if you're shooting an expensive gun. I mean, drop a $1,200 gun to the bottom of a lake, you're not going to be very happy.
Whether it's expensive or the $400 variety, you
yeah.
put that in the lake, your hunt's over.
Yeah.
Right?
You're done,
so
yeah.
You're done.
And they make, not only do they make floating gun cases, but they make floating slings as well, that are comfortable to shoot off. I had one that was a Delta waterfowl. I think it was a Avery, but it was a Delta waterfowl branded one. I used it for a long time. It worked really, really well. So it's about making sure not only are you protected, but your equipment's protected so you can hunt the next week or sometimes for just moving spots.
And to your point, I grabbed my gun sleeve. And so it's always good, I think, and for your listeners, that's something that I've learned over the years is that your most important piece of equipment out there is that gun, right? If the gun goes down, you go down. It's like back to the truck and long drive back home. And so I'm a stickler about making sure my gun is obviously in good working condition when I get to the blind or when I get to the marsh and where I'm ended up setting up. So one of the things I've always done is put it in a gun sleeve, or in your case, you're in a boat, you have a gun case. But these sleeves are very inexpensive. They're like $20. You know, instead of just carrying your gun out there on a sling, and you're maybe moving through brush or going through, the cattails or whatever the case may be, this protects that gun, right, from things getting into the trigger. And as you guys well know, Overton or Nevada is just dusty, right? A lot of dust particles and stuff like that. For some of these inertia guns and even these gas guns, their worst friend is dirt, right, or dust. And so this is just a little bit more added protection for $20. You could throw it in a gun sleeve, and and you can see that it just folds up as opposed to a regular gun case. This just folds up. You throw it in your blind bag or in your decoy bag, and then you're all set to go. And so you're ensuring that gun is clean, it's safe, and it's free from debris. And it's those little things, guys, that count. I just had so many different instances where I've had with guys that were bringing in guns and it wasn't protected. I'm sorry to say, years and years ago, there was an incident. I was there, and we were hunting timber in Arkansas, and so we had to get to a certain place in buckbrush, and well, that particular guy, he had a loaded gun, was not on safe. There was one in the pipe, and guess what? Walking through that brush, good thing he didn't take his head off.
Yeah,
that was something that it's an eye opener. And it's something that's like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened, because you turn around and you're always hearing gunshots anyway, right? But that was before the sun came up, so he wasn't shooting at anything. And so I turn around and everybody has this white face, going, oh my God. And so this particular model, this is doesn't have the sling, but they have the built-in slings as well
That's what my biggest things about hauling guns out to the blinds and stuff like that. And I'm not as good as you and Brian, but I'll take it out of the case because I don't want to have to deal with the case out there. And so I'll take it out of the case and strap it on. But with that, you can fold it up and put it away. You're good.
Yeah, you're good. And you're protecting that gun. It doesn't matter if it's a $400 gun or a $2,000 gun. It's your gun.
Exactly.
That's your tool for the day.
That's right. That is your most prized possession besides your dog. But that's your most prized possession. That it better work when you get there, and to get it there safely. But again, to my point, that unfortunately or fortunately that no one got hurt. It rung his ear pretty good because it was right behind here. And what happens? Just a stick or a branch just caught that trigger.
Well, it's easy to do. So we were out hunting this last season, and we brushed in the blind and stuff. And it was early season, so sometimes people will overbrush their blinds a lot. And so I went to pull up on a duck, or I don't even think it was before.
It was before shooting light, and we were getting ready. And
we were getting ready, and I had my gun set up against the blind, but I went to move my gun, and I pulled it up. And I'm notorious about making sure my gun is always in a safe direction. And when I pulled my gun up, it caught a branch. And we were loaded because we're ready to shoot ducks. Right. And it caught a branch and it discharged the gun. So it's not, you can be as safe as you want.
And Brian's a very experienced hunter. Yeah. Very experienced, very big on gun safety, very like doesn't make mistakes type of guy.
And it's just, things happen. And so we're trying to mitigate the ability for those things to happen. So if we keep things in gun cases, or for mine, I carry mine on the back of my backpack. So if I'm going through something, it's going to hit me from the front and it's going to go around, right? And so it's not going to close up completely behind me and grab my gun because it's going to be dead center in the middle of your back. But it's how you're going to handle those things and how you protect your guns. The gun is the one tool that I could get rid of my decoys. I could buy Walmart, the cheapest ammo I could buy.
I could put on your Britney Spears shirt.
Well, I can wear Crocs like Ron. I can do all that stuff.
Croc scale ducks.
And get rid of everything else but my gun and my ammo, and I can go jump shoot ducks. I can do it without camo on. I could do it all. But I could have all the equipment in the world. If my gun doesn't work, I'm not going to kill any ducks.
It's over.
So we're done. We're going home. That's it. So it's important, and it's maintenance. Ron talked about it a little bit. It's not taking your gun apart in the field. There's little pieces, and little pieces are hard to find once they disappear, especially if you're not in a set blind. We're lucky enough to if we want to go to Overton, they're set blinds. They're not the cleanest sometimes, but we're out in the brush. We're set up in the reeds. You take your gun apart, you drop a piece in the water. That's it. We're done. We're going home.
Yeah, you're done. Hey, what What's your favorite thing to finish ducks with?
Finish ducks.
Like if they're crippled and you get them in the water?
That was a great segue to one of my last things I wanted to talk to you about. It's like, and people, so finished ducks, and what he's talking about is everybody, we've been taught to ring the duck or whatever the case.
You spin it, right? Like
you spin it or something, right? And
what's that like little musical instrument that goes wah, 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 wah.
And so
Duck doesn't make that sound when you do
a
it.
lot of you guys have done that, and because you want to humanely kill that duck, right? You're spinning it. And
Stretch its neck out 12 feet.
Yeah, the next thing you know, the body's that way, and the neck is in your hand. And I hate that. I just, I think you got to have a little bit more respect for the duck than that. So there was this thing called the finisher that came out, and so I didn't realize this, but they have different colors and
Oh yeah, you can get them blue wing, teal,
and I knew they had two sizes. One was a goose size and one was a duck size. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I have religiously I have it on my duck lanyard. And for those guys that
Is that the goose size or the duck size?
this is the duck size right here.
he's got the OG finisher too. That's like the original color and design.
Yeah, this was from a while ago, and I've been using this, and so no more ringing ducks and spinning them around, and it's a very simple, humane tool. I'm a really big advocate of it because of the fact that it's just paying that respect to that duck to give them that quick death, especially you didn't do a good job or they were wounded, and they were still alive. But it inserts, obviously behind their head, and there's a bump there, and
It's kind of a soft spot in there.
a soft spot, and find it, and just push it in, and just kind of turn it a couple of times, and it really does an effective job. And so I've always wondered how well it would do with geese, because I always wondered with goose guys, are they flipping that goose around? Because those things are,
Yeah, that's
right?
a workout right
20,
there.
Yeah, 20 pounds plus. And so I got to answer that question last weekend when there was one that sailed, and one of the dogs had gotten it, and so brought it back, and it worked perfect. I mean, this is the duck model, but there's a goose model, but this worked just as fine.
Well, Ron and we've used finishers for a long time, and
okay.
so we love the finisher. I don't keep mine on my calls because I'm notorious. I don't like having calls around my neck. I can't stand it. So I'll have my calls next to me. So I end up clipping mine to my wader, to the D-ring on my wader. Mm-hmm. And that way, if I'm go out in the water, I go to retrieve a duck, I can just pick the duck up and do it right there. So the idea, I mean, we get a bad rap as hunters enough that all you're doing is you just want to kill animals, and animals are suffering and this and that. The last thing I want to do is make an animal suffer. So I want to finish that animal. I want to finish him with my initial shot. And, so any way we can help alleviate some of that stress and some of that suffering, it's a great thing for everybody. I know I heard the story about the guy that owns Boss Shot Shell. Okay. And so the reason he designed Boss Shot Shell is he was seeing too many crippled ducks, and he could not stand the fact that people were crippling ducks, and it was taking them a while, and they were having to go and put them out and this and that. So he designed this, and he worked on it. So it was a more effective round. So it finished ducks. When you hit the duck was going to go. So he did it because that was for him as a sportsman, as a hunter. Yeah. He hated seeing that, and I do too. I don't want to see. I hate you end up wounding a duck, or they get outside your shot pattern, and they're gonna die if you leave them. They go back into the weeds. They're gonna die again. Green. They're gonna within a week that duck's gonna be dead. So you're gonna let that duck suffer for a week. No. So if we can make ethical shots to start with, quit shooting at 80 yards on ducks. You're not gonna kill them at 80 yards. Just let them get in close. Get them into your decoys. Let's take better shots, and then on the odd occasion that we have an issue to where we have a duck that we do need to finish, this is a super simple, quick way. Now, we call them the zombie ducks. So I've had some ducks. I've used a finisher on a duck 3 different times, and this duck was still alive. And but for the most part, it's quick. You put that in, you spin it around, And what it does, it just takes their brain and it destroys it, right?
It's lights out.
I did also we talked to Bradley Coots, the taxidermist, about it too, and taxidermists like it better than you ringing the necks also.
Because when you ring the necks, you're stretching it, so you're stretching the skin, you're doing damage to that duck, and they can't recreate it. So this is putting a single small hole in the back of the head, and he can cover it up really easy. I mean, you just move the feathers around and you cover it back up. And they're easy to use. They're quick. They're lightweight. Grab 3 or 4 of them. I mean,
they're inexpensive. So
Yeah.
there's really no
Like the most
excuse.
expensive one right here is $25, and that's for the large Canadian goose finisher. I looked at the prices while we were sitting here.
well, and they're cool. You can collect them. I mean, if you're a Canadian goose guy, they have a Canadian goose one there. I know they have a blue wing teal one. I think they have a mallard one, and so they kind of paint them in themes. And I think they have breast cancer awareness one too. So you can do the feather finisher, so it looks like a feather that spins around and you put it around your finger. So you can kind of get accustomed to what your personality is.
That one's
too.
American flags, back
Yeah.
the blue flag.
So I mean, it's a great thing. So you're doing your part to be an
Marines.
ethical hunter, because that's our number one goal, is to be the most ethical hunter as possible. So
This is part of it. I think having this and learning how to use it is part of being ethical, right? I'm sure there's guys out there that use something similar. They don't have to buy this. Maybe a spike. I don't know, a spike.
You could use a nail for this, man. It's the same
Nail,
concept, but
right.
this is this nice. It fits nicely in your thumb. It was engineered by a duck hunter. It's not that expensive, and I mean, they even have the Louis Vuitton one for Brian.
well,
so.
and the
Yeah,
thing
there's
is,
a Louis Vuitton.
but they're actually designed with. They're designed with a purpose. Yeah, you could use a nail, and you're gonna have to. It's gonna take some extra work. So this, if you look at it, it's kind of tipped up at the end. So you insert it, and it automatically gonna point up. So it's as it's inserting, it's there's a brain stem, and what it's doing is it's cutting the brain stem, and that's lights out. So they're designed to do it as efficiently and as quickly as possible, which is what we're asking for. That's what the respect we should give the animal. Sometimes, if you're going to get a bad rap, let's not get a bad rap because we're doing stupid things. Let's get a bad rap because people don't understand us, right? Let's get a bad rap because they don't understand that your hunters are your biggest conservationists. They think we're one thing, and then we can sit down in a room and talk about, hey, but here's all we do to improve the habitat, right? But if we got guys out there and we go shoot a duck and we throw it in the bottom of the blind and we're wringing its neck, or some guys aren't even wringing their necks, they're just letting them flop around the bottom of the blind until they die.
I've seen it where guys are afraid to do it.
Yeah.
They're afraid to finish that duck. They're hoping that it's just going to
Pass away.
pass away on its own, right? And it's sad, but the bottom line, it's unethical. It's your duty as a sportsman to make sure that duck dies humanely as possible.
And you gotta, I mean, there's laws about most of this stuff. I mean, I guarantee you if a game warden comes in and your duck's flopping around on the bottom of your blind, you're going to have an issue.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with, if we're going to harvest ducks or geese or waterfowl or any animal for that matter, make use of as much of it as you can. Right. So, some guys, it's like, yeah, I'm going to shoot this coot and I'm going to go throw it in the bushes, or I'm going to leave it in the path. I mean, Overton, they had a big issue with guys were killing coots and just leaving them.
And then coyotes would come tear them up, and there's like black feathers every single blind.
Well, and it does a couple things. So, A, it's uncalled for. So it's wanton waste. So it's actually, it's a crime, number one. So that's a big part of it, but it's also, you're now giving the reasons coyotes an extra reason to come in, and then they're going to get established, and they're going to get comfortable, and then guess what happens when the ducks hatch?
Right.
Now we lose a breeding population. So it goes a long way. So we need to do every little thing we can to be as ethical as possible, and we owe it to our other hunters to not only just be ethical, but to give us our ammunition against the anti-hunters as well. So
I like that concept though. Like if you're gonna pack it out and you don't care about the meat, at least pack it out so the coyotes don't have meat.
yeah, and that's
Because if there's not food, they'll leave.
but we owe it to each other to grow the sport. We owe it to each other to do it the right way. We owe it to each other to take away the ammunition from the people trying to take our rights away to hunt. So I think it's a big thing. And so these finishers go a long ways at kind of doing that.
Along with these, I mean, they're cheap. They're about the size of a quarter. And so they're not going to take up a lot of space. Like Brian says, he could hang it on his wader hoop and it's always there. And like, I bought them for my buddy. I bought them for Nate. I bought him one. I bought me one, and they're a great gift, man.
Yeah, they're great. I was going to say great Christmas presents, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm glad we brought this up. I've just been such an advocate of this tool that, that was something that was lacking. Before there was that, like a pair of pliers. Remember those that?
No, I don't remember those.
Yeah, it was like a pair of pliers that you break the neck with, and it just, oh my God.
What a mess.
It was a mess, and so really, your listeners, do yourself a favor and get one of these things and try them out. You'll feel much better.
Yeah.
You'll feel much better instead of wringing that neck or whatever the case may be.
Well, Ruben, man, dude, we can't thank you so much for coming on the show. Like, can you believe it's almost been 2 hours? I hope we don't lose listeners, man, because I enjoy the conversation. We could keep going, and we probably will after the podcast. We have to shut the cameras off.
I think that, they may have gone probably past my bedtime. I certainly enjoy it. There's a couple things I want to say before we sign off.
Okay.
Is that you guys should be extremely proud of what you guys have done in this short period of time. I just recently read that you're expanding. The listenership has expanded to different areas of the country, and that's great.
We're so grateful for everybody that listened to us.
Yeah, it's amazing. I looked at that. I looked at stats, and we've hit every continent in the United States or in the world. And so, with the exception of Antarctica, which they don't track, but it's been a really humbling experience for Ron and I. I mean, it's really humbling. One of the coolest things, you don't know this, Ruben, one of the coolest things that ever happened was, we went out that day and we went to hunt. And, it wasn't the greatest hunt. I mean, the geese came and somebody shot before, and they didn't even have a chance on the geese. And so they pushed them out. So we weren't going to get a shot on them. We decided, well, we're going to take a break. Then I'm going to come back to the afternoon. So we went and got breakfast, and you were watching the geese come in and saying, why aren't these idiots shooting at these geese? Right. But, when we met you at the truck that day, and I said, yeah, just in passing, yeah, we started a little podcast. And you go, what's the name of your podcast? And I told you, and you're like, man, I knew I was going to run into you guys sometime. I really love your podcast. I'm like, dude, I don't even know this guy. I'm like, I just thought it was people that we knew that were actually listening to the podcast. So it was really cool for us to see that, that there was a hunter that now we've really grown to respect you and what you've done as a hunter, and that people like that would actually listen to us. And we're like, why? I mean, we're just a couple of dumb rednecks that talk about stupid stuff. We wouldn't be
half successful if it wasn't for guys like Ruben and guys like Gannon and guys like Tim Ruiz. There's too many to name coming on the show, man.
Too many, and
yeah.
I think we're all like-minded, right? And so it certainly, I'm proud to be associated with you guys. I think that you guys bring. You guys are the complete package as far as ethical sportsmen. You're a conservationist. You care about your community. You care about your sport. You care about how this thing is moving forward. So whatever I could do, my pledge to you guys is whatever I could do. If there's ideas that listeners have that maybe we can bring here to the workshop and show you, hey, this is how we do things. And remember, this is a way, not the way. I'm just showing you some things that I've learned, and I'm more than happy to pass those along. Just like, you guys are doing the same thing, and so we bring a lot of things to the table, and all we're hoping to do, or at least what I hope to do, is to help that sportsman out there that's maybe wondering, want to learn, or want to advance, or want to be more consistent, and so. I hope that I can help with that. That's my only goal. I'm not the best duck hunter out there. But,
debatable.
I'm consistent because of my OCD. And if I can pass along that to your listeners, that's my whole intent, is to make their experience just as good or better than mine every time I go in the duck blind, because I'm a pretty lucky guy. So
No, you have an open invite anytime. Anytime you have an idea or subject that you think needs to be brought before the world out of your brain with your experience, let's go.
Yeah,
I appreciate that, guys.
we love having you in here, and we this podcast wouldn't be possible without some of the great guests that we get in that are gracious enough to spend some time with us and spend an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours out of their evening to come sit down and talk to Ron and I. And
Keep talking. We got 3 hours, Bub.
yeah, absolutely. And it also wouldn't be possible without all the people out that we're fortunate enough to have listened to our podcast. And so, as Ruben said, if there's an idea that people have, get us on Facebook, send us a message. Ron and I will answer. We answer the messages, or send us an email. We have you go to battlebornduckers.com, you can send us an email, and, ideas of things you want to hear, you want to learn about. For Ron and I, it doesn't have to be about duck hunting. It can be about conservation. It can be about big game hunting. What are the passions that people are interested in? We got some.
Why you love Crocs?
Yeah. We have some pretty interesting guests that we have kind of lined up in the future as well on a bunch of different subjects. So, man, like we always say, though, if you're going to go out this weekend, make sure you try to take somebody with you. If you're going to take somebody with you, make sure you teach them something if you can. If you can't take somebody or teach somebody, just make sure you hunt hard.